Oh, okay. Okay, Philip. All right. Okay, so I was reading your comment on my video titled Naturally Moi. And it seems as though, I'll read the comment first. It says, "Yeah, I got you, but I feel it has to do with a person's environment on how you feel about your personal safety." And it struck me as the implication was, if you live in a war zone, if you live in a ghetto, if you live somewhere where there is gunfire going on or a hostile environment, then yeah, that's the reason why you have this mentality. That's just not the case. I've always been armed with something. If it hasn't been a gun, it's been something so that I can protect myself. And I can tell you, I have lived in ghettos, and I've lived outside of ghettos in the suburbs. No matter where I am, I just feel like as a woman, we should always be protected. I came across an article where a woman was out shopping, and she actually had to shoot at someone because there was an attempt to carjack her. Now, had this woman not been armed, the person probably would have taken her and her car. And I've seen cases like this where women have been carjacked and either the car has been taken solely or she's been forced to ride with the person who's now robbing her, and they have taken them off in many cases and raped them, sometimes even killed them. So it's always important, as far as I'm concerned, for women to be armed with something. Some women don't feel comfortable. Like I have a sister, she doesn't feel comfortable owning a gun. But because she is a woman and she works, graveyard shift, I feel like she should have something to protect herself.
Well, when it comes to, let's say, like, you, for instance, the first thing I'm going to think is, it started from somewhere. Like, why you feel insecure about just your surroundings, period. It means everything a person does is a reason for it. You just don't wake up out of the clear blue and say, you know what, I'm going to get a gun. Something triggered that. Something must have happened. That's how I look at it. At least maybe in your life.
Oh, okay, I can tell you. I can tell you what triggered it. And there's actually no big story behind it. I was dating a guy who was a gun owner, and he said, "Do you have a gun?" And I said, "No, I've never thought about owning a gun." And he said, "I think you should have one." And so he went to the gun store with me, and I have a gun. I mean, I've had a gun for years. So it was never really like, oh my God, someone tried to rob me, so I have to go and buy a gun. Or, oh my God, I have a stalker. Or, someone attempted to rape me. No, it was nothing like that. It was just, he suggested it. I thought it was a great suggestion, and I bought one.
Well, I know from, personal experience that somebody could suggest, something, we were dating somebody and we tried, and it could be a good thing. But you're like, me personally, like I say, I just, when it comes to guns and things like that, I don't really I never had an issue with people or an issue like of my environment. Like let's say if I was back in the hood where I used to be, and let's say if I'm there all the time, and I know that okay, some crackhead or whatever gonna try to do something, then yeah, I'd probably be more inclined to walk around with something. But I always said that once I got out of the hood, I would never want to go back to that environment. And I have children. I don't want to subject my children to that lifestyle or my spouse to that particular, lifestyle. So I had to make it more of my mission as a safety out to be in a place where I don't have to worry about that, where women can walk around at night and be no problem. Which that's the kind of place I live now. The women walk around at night. Nobody does them anything. Now, anywhere you go, yeah, somebody can do you something. Yes, I get that. And but I just don't never have problems like that. You know, people have time don't even want to cross two words with me, and it's not like I'm so bad or something. But I just never had that problem.
But you never have a problem until you have a problem. That's my point. You never have an issue until someone, gives you an issue. Why do you think politicians walk around with armed bodyguards? High-profile celebrities walk around with armed bodyguards. They've probably never had any problems either. But there's always that possibility that you could.
Yeah, but see, you can't compare regular people, let's say like myself, to them. Like them, I mean, it's all kind of people want to get at them. They want to kidnap them and for extortion purposes, for money. They have crazy people that's obsessed with them, so they probably want to kill them. So, like for instance, the president, a lot of people hate him. They just recently had like 4 U.S. soldiers that was in this plot to assassinate the president. They caught him. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's you got to protect, people like that. There's all kind of crazies coming at them, but an ordinary guy like me that don't have, that kind of exposure or whatever, that I won't think about it. Now, let's say all of a sudden I did get like that, and I start having those sort of issues, okay, but then now I'm put in that position. Now I say, okay, I may need some security details, and I would not have, a problem doing that. But it depends on the situation.
Right. Well, I think that the people in Colorado who have been shot by, like in Columbine, would take issue with that. I think that people in the Aurora, Colorado shooting would take issue with that. It's like, those high profile people, you understand why they have armed bodyguards, but at the same time, it's like everyone's life should be protected, and had those people in those situations, with the exception of the high school, had those people in the movie theater, had someone else been armed, they may have been able to stop or reduce the amount of carnage that was left after he walked out of that theater. So, yeah, I understand your point, but at the same time, you have to always be prepared. No, you don't think walking into a movie theater or a church like this Sikh temple that was just shot up, you don't think walking into these places that you should be armed, but imagine if someone had been armed, maybe these situations would either be reduced or stopped before they even happened.
But that crosses the line of protecting yourself personally versus being law enforcement. And then the fine line about that, you can go be this cowboy or cowgirl and go take somebody out. But you can cross the line that, okay, now did you cross the line, or did you actually protect yourself? And you know how they are. They'll trump some charges on people sometimes, not all the time, but trying to we think doing the right thing, but yet we're doing their job. You know what I'm saying?
If you're in the midst of a crime happening, you do not have to be law enforcement in order to stop that crime from occurring. You do not have to be law enforcement. And in the case with the Aurora shooting or the Temple shooting, anyone that was armed who was in the line of that fire could have returned fire. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's not a matter of you have to be a part of law enforcement in order to protect yourself. And depending on the state in which you live, like, for example, not only does Florida have the stand your ground law, but there's another one, I think it's Oklahoma, has a stand your ground law. That not only applies to the individual, but it extends to anyone that individual may need to protect, like his neighbor or the person that's with him, etc.
So basically what you're saying is because it goes from having a gun to protect yourself to stopping a crime from happening, and it's okay to do this. Not to say you're not doing the right thing or whatever, but let's say like if everybody will start to do that, and let's say go like back like to the Wild West time, where everybody had a gun, everybody walking around doing, those sort of things. How would society, be, eventually?
Oh, you know what?
Everybody has a gun, has a temperament to be pulling the trigger and firing at somebody anyway. In that sort of instant. I mean, who trains you for that? You know what I'm saying? Unless you've been in the military or something like that.
There have been studies done that have shown crime rates are reduced when people are armed. For example, when it's easy to access firearms, like in Vermont, the crime rates are very low compared to places like here in California, where it's very hard to obtain a gun. Not only do you have to go through a background check, but after you purchase your firearm, you still have to wait 10 days before they will release it. So in Vermont, you can virtually walk in into a store like you buy beer or a pack of cigarettes, and you can buy a gun. So in those states where gun laws are less strenuous, the crime rates are lower.
Well, when it comes to guns, I'm in Texas, okay, and you know how Texans are about their guns. And let's say like if somebody was on my property and they were trying to do something, do you know I can't use lethal force on my actual property to kill them? I can get charges, but if they come inside my home, I can use lethal force to kill them.
Joe Horn, and I know you must be familiar with Joe Horn if you live in Texas.
I don't want to really go into the Joe Horn case because it was a big deal about that, and we know that if Joe Horn would have been a black man and there had been two white guys trying to break into somebody's house, and the 911 operator told them to stand down, leave him alone, we got it, and he'd have been black, two white guys, it wouldn't happen that way. I'm in the South, so I know how it goes here.
You're probably right. But
well, I know I'm right because Joe Horn can't believe it that he was black. Trust me, he wouldn't have. The South is very, courageous on a lot of things, and what white men can get away with versus what a black man can get away with. But for me, it's like I don't really feel the need to carry a gun because I don't live in an area where I feel I need to. Like say, if I went to an area where I feel like, man, I better carry a strap. I went to Fifth Ward, Third Ward, or something. Some family member, somebody had to get up out of something. Then, okay, that's different. Then I said, I better carry something over there. I said, but I'm just not going to carry something I don't feel a need to. But everybody's different.
Okay, so based on that, you believe that you are safe from harm unless you go into a harmful environment.
Realistically, you can live wherever you want.
That's a yes or no question.
You can't stop it. I mean, you can't stop it. What you're saying is, well, you feel safe because you live in basically in a bad environment. I mean, but on that, I mean, it's like you gotta have some sort of safe feel like you safe somewhere where you live at, or you gonna be paranoid. This is how I feel. I'm not saying how other people should feel. I'm saying me. I don't live in an area where I feel like I gotta be armed everywhere I go. Because if that's the case, then I don't feel safe where I'm at. But I'm not saying that just because you got that gun on you don't mean you can stop somebody from doing something to you. You can be walking by yourself, and somebody can be watching you for a while, run up on you and get you. I mean, just because you got a gun on me, that's going to protect you.
That's very true.
I've seen it happen too many times. People all can have guns on them, and they still get got by people. So it doesn't, and sometimes they'll take that gun from you and use your own gun on you if you don't watch it.
That's very true, but I don't think most gun owners and people that walk around with handguns have the mentality that we are guaranteed to save ourselves if we have our guns on us. That's not the mentality. The thought behind, at least for me, the thought is no matter where I go, I should always be protected. There have been situations all across this country where women have went hiking, and sometimes in twos, and some stranger out of the blue attacks. So if they're armed, they can protect themselves. If they're not armed, they're vulnerable to whoever is out there with bad intentions. Now, you're going on a nature walk, you're going for exercise, you're going for fresh air. The average person isn't thinking some creep is out there just waiting to attack me. But it happens all the time. So why not be prepared? That's all I'm saying.
That's how I feel. If you feel like, hey, I'm going out here by myself as a woman, I want to, because I've heard of things happening, and you feel like you want to carry that gun. That's you. That's your right as an American citizen. That's what you feel like you need to do. I'm not knocking nobody that want to do that. I guess I'm just kind of old school too about I like to be the one to protect my woman deal, and it's like my woman, walking everywhere with a gun. And she don't feel protected by me, or she feels unsafe, or something. I guess that would probably play too in some of my men who like why I would ask her like why you feeling you walk around with a gun all the time? I mean, like you feel unsafe where I have you lived in, or something's happened, like because I don't think something happened to you. Like my sister, for instance,
Well, let me just address this before you go on to that. That's a very, I don't want to use the word chauvinistic, but it's definitely a very, it's a man's way of thinking, and I think it's the wrong way of thinking. Okay, let me just say why. Usually if there's two people walking down a street, a man and a woman, and there's someone that has the intent of attacking you, the first person they disable always is the male. So once they disable you, then the female is not protected. She cannot be protected by you anyways. So the mentality that, well, I'm the man, I should be the protector. If I can't protect you, then, it makes me feel like less than. I don't know that that's the right, that's just not the way I would hope most men think. Because, in home invasions, on the street, carjackings, whatever, robberies, if there are two people, male and a female, they will always take the male out first. So who's left to protect the woman? Herself.
Yeah, I agree with that. But most men, and women would think you less than a man if you don't have an attitude like, be the protector of my lady or my woman. They'll call you weak. They'll call you a punk.
That's not true. That's not true. What kind of women are you dating?
A lot of women out there would raise, they want to feel protected by their man. They don't want a man they feel like, oh, I gotta protect him.
Well, that's true.
It's not chauvinistic. I mean, it's just in our nature as men to want to protect our wives, our girlfriends, our children.
Right, and you can. I mean, it's not as if something was going down immediately. If I'm with a man, I'm reaching for my firearm. That's not usually, I mean, I've never had to deal with that type of situation, but that wouldn't be my first inclination to just reach for the gun. Oh, it's like, okay, first, let's see what's going on here. Let's see if we can resolve this. If it's a robbery, let's see if we can resolve this another way first. And if we see that it's violent, meaning you're being approached with guns already drawn, then you have to think of, a way out of this. And that's when the mentality comes in. You can no longer protect yourself with your gun anyways. So now you have to start using psychological manipulation in order to either get the person to lower the gun or go away, or just take whatever you have and leave.
Yeah, like everything, it depends on the situation. Like, for instance, I was going to bring up an example. You know, my sister had a crime happen to her, and she got the gun from him actually, and she went to shoot him in the head with was loaded pistol with the beat the guy up. You know, but ever since then, my sister, you know, to this day, she still she don't walk around with a gun. I would think she would. I think she carries like, pepper spray or something.
Yeah.
But she don't carry a gun.
Right. You have to carry what you're most comfortable with. And some women aren't comfortable with a gun, and I understand that. But they should have something. And, this video, the purpose of this video is to inform women that you should have something. I don't care if it's pepper spray. What else do they use? Oh, tasers now. They have tasers. You have other options. So if that's where your comfort level is, then do that. But just be protected with something.